Smarter, healthier children. That's what we're going to talk about today on HealthSource. And you're going to find this available on DVD and also on my YouTube page. So I'm going to give you 7 things that you can do to have smarter, healthier children right now. I'm going to mention a couple of articles first to warm us up to the issues that we're facing. First is by Dr. Terry Schrader. He is an internist at Mount Auburn Hospital. He wrote an article in February of 2010 titled, "Deteriorating Children's Health Isn't a Mystery." From anxiety and hormonal disorders to high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes, doctors are treating boys and girls for numerous medical conditions that were once uncommon or never seen in children, and many are preventable. I couldn't agree more. What I'm going to talk about today is prevention, preventing childhood illnesses, or if your child already has a problem with learning a behavior or illness, we're going to talk about corrective measures, not just medication. We know that untreated cholesterol disorders, as an example, in children are linked to increased risk of cardiovascular disease in adulthood. So when should we start? Well, we have to start now. We as parents have to start giving healthy advice to kids now and bringing them up in a healthy lifestyle so they don't have an increased risk of chronic diseases as they become adults. Dr. Schrader said he was a counselor, a doctor at a camp. "I was shocked by the inability of children to do simple exercises without being short of breath. Many could not balance while trying to stand on one leg. Simple requests to hop or rise on their toes as I examined them were impossible for some of the out-of-shape children." He was working as a physician at a summer camp a few summers ago. He was struck by how many children were on prescription medications for all sorts of ailments. Of the 850 children in attendance, more than 1/3 would line up daily to receive medications that they had brought from home, and this was a camp for healthy kids. What he was getting at, he was shocked at how unfit these kids were, how overweight they were, and how many of them at a young age were already on medications. Mercola.com, I'm just going to mention this quickly. Medication and drug and medical error rates. So I'm going to talk about, for a moment, the serious side effects that people can undergo with all of these medications that are given out right now. And so I can offer you more conservative solutions as we move ahead. Adverse drug reactions cause 106,000 deaths per year. Unnecessary procedures, 37,000 deaths per year. Medical errors cause 98,000 deaths per year. And surgery, 32,000 deaths per year. If you add all of those up, that's 273,000 deaths per year in this country, which is the 3rd leading cause of death. I think we need other answers as opposed to just pills. And I'm not saying pills are not necessary, but you can see by those statistics, we need to find other answers. Regarding antibiotics and antibiotic-resistant infections, solution to killer superbug found in Norway. This is about MRSA. There is no sign of a dangerous and contagious staph infection, MRSA, that kills tens of thousands of patients in the most sophisticated hospitals of Europe, North America, and Asia this year. This is back in 2009. The reason being is Norwegians stopped taking so many drugs. 25 years ago, Norwegians were also losing their lives to this bacteria, MRSA, but Norway's public health system fought back with an aggressive program that made it the most infection-free country in the world. A key part of that program was cutting back severely on the use of antibiotics. Norwegian doctors prescribe fewer antibiotics than any other country. So now there's no MRSA in Norway. In contrast, in Japan, with its cutting-edge technology and modern hospitals, about 17,000 people die per year from MRSA. We should take a lesson from Norway and stop handing people antibiotics indiscriminately for infections that will resolve on their own. Here's another article following up on that. Antibiotics for treatment of acute respiratory tract infections. Decreasing benefit, increasing risk, and the irrelevance of antimicrobial resistance. Despite little microbiological reason indicating that it would be helpful, antibiotic prescribing for treatment of predominantly viral acute respiratory tract infections remains nearly as popular as ever. What they're saying is even though there's no reason to give people an antibiotic for a viral respiratory infection, it happens a ton every day, every year in this country. 50% of antibiotic prescribing to adults and 75% of antibiotic prescribing to children are for acute respiratory tract infections, which in almost every case is a viral issue. Antibiotics are ineffective and it creates more antibiotic resistance. 5 to 25% of patients will develop antibiotic-associated diarrhea. C. diff is a serious issue. 2% will develop a skin reaction. 1 of 5,000 people given antibiotics will have an anaphylactic reaction. We need other answers. That's the purpose of my show here today. Well, let's start with the most important thing you need to do with your children. The top thing, it will always be the most important, is what you're allowing your children to eat. What you're going to allow them to eat. How are you going to teach them healthy eating habits now when they're young, or if you're parents-to-be? What are you going to decide to feed your children when they're young, when their diet is under your full control? That's the next section. What I'm going to talk about now is the nutrition connection to having smarter, healthier children. How bad is it? Well, let's start off with Richard Carmona. He was the 17th U.S. Surgeon General from 2002 to 2006. He did a presentation to a Senate committee, and he came up with some staggering statistics. Over the past 20 years, the rate of overweight children has doubled and tripled in adolescence. Nearly 2 out of every 3 American adults and 15% of American kids are overweight or obese. That's more than 9 million children, 1 out of every 7. And that's going to relate to chronic diseases. Pediatricians are diagnosing children with type 2 diabetes. 1/3 of all children born in the year 2000 will develop type 2 diabetes during their lifetime. Now, stop and think about that for a moment. Genetics cannot explain that. Bad genes are not giving kids obesity and type 2 diabetes. It's not occurring. You cannot have a genetic epidemic. This is because of changing environment, which means what we're feeding kids, taking exercise away, and adding video screens. That's the problem. Because of the increasing rates of obesity, unhealthy eating habits, and physical inactivity, we may see the first generation that will be less healthy and have a shorter life expectancy than their parents. We're just simply not going to live as long any longer. It is very important for parents to take responsibility. We must teach our children to enjoy healthy foods in healthy portions and encourage them to be physically active for at least 60 minutes a day. Parents must make the healthy choices. Turn off the TV and video games, go outside with your kids, be more active, and so forth. Here's another organization talking about this, the Partnership to Fight Chronic Disease, which Richard Carmona is involved with. More than $2.5 trillion is spent annually. They say healthcare, I call it disease care. $2.5 trillion is spent on healthcare in the U.S. Approximately 1.1 million people have died of chronic diseases. Now, chronic diseases are very simple. Heart disease, type 2 diabetes, cancer, Alzheimer's. Those 4 things are getting half the people that die each year. Chronic disease consumes 75 cents of every dollar spent in disease care or health care. So those 4 diseases cost 75% of health care. That needs to change. That's what we're talking about today. Robert Lustig is a pediatric endocrinologist, if I remember correctly, from California. And he did a great chat on Science Friday, NPR, in February of 2012, coming out with some staggering stuff. The average American drinks 57 gallons of soda per year, 600 cans per year per person on average. Half of it's diet, half of it is not diet. By the way, diet soda is worse than non-diet soda. That's 450 calories of added sugar per day per person. If everyone switched to just water, no soda, no fruit juice, and no sport drinks, lots of these problems would go away. These issues with high sugar cause metabolic syndrome, high insulin levels, insulin resistance, which drives chronic diseases such as type 2 diabetes, same stuff, right? Obesity, hypertension, lipid problems, heart disease, fatty liver disease, polycystic ovarian disease, cancer, and dementia. Do you want to help your kids get these things by allowing these poor habits to start when they're children? Probably not. You need to get started right away in showing them how to eat healthy, and you have to lead the charge, parents, by changing your own health habits. One problem is sugar has the potential for abuse, dependency, and addiction. Sugar is available 24/7, 365 in amounts that have never been known to man. Even though we reduced our fat intake in the 70s from 40% of our calories to 30%. So we dropped our fat intake from 40% to 30%. But we're getting much fatter. Why is that? Because we added sugar. And that's the problem. We're eating way too much processed food and sugar. The fastest way to have a smarter, healthier child is to knock out the sugar and have them eat real food. Michael Pollan is a personal friend of mine, says Robert Lustig. And Michael Pollan said 7 words: eat food, not too much, mostly plants. Robert Lustig says, I'm going to make this even easier. 3 words: eat real food. Stuff that grows from the ground, and the animals that run around on the ground that eat the stuff that comes from the ground. That's what he's getting at. Eat real food, not stuff in a package. That's the most important thing that you can do for your children. I have an article here from someone that I know. He was telling me about his 3-year-old and how he was encouraging good eating habits. This is back in 2003. White navy beans are the newest rage on Ethan's platter. He has eggplant lasagna with polenta, barley stuffed peppers. In my opinion, we have to keep kids away from kids who eat poorly. Another child saying yuck about some food has to influence the still virgin taste buds of my son, Ethan. Ethan's food favorites are hummus or black bean dip with celery sticks or special green bean dipping sticks. We call them special. Isn't that amazing? So you can see that they're encouraging vegetables and beans and so on and so forth. Kids eat what their parents eat, said this father. Speaking to him 7 years later, in 2010, he now has a 10-year-old. Ethan has never had a soda or a tonic. He's never had a sport drink. He's never been to Wendy's. And he loves salad. A 10-year-old loves salad. He reiterated, kids are brought up to know an innate diet, or they're brought up to know a diet which will lead to disease. Important. Another connection of diet, learning, and behavior. Diet may help ADHD kids more than drugs. Dr. Liddy Pelsler of the ADHD Research Center in the Netherlands, she wrote, ADHD is just a couple of symptoms. She's saying it's not necessarily a disease. It's just some symptoms that a child is expressing. The way we think about ADHD and treat it, these behaviors, the things that we're doing, are wrong. We need to have a paradigm shift, she says. According to Pelsler, 64% of kids diagnosed, 2/3 of kids with ADHD, are actually experiencing a hypersensitivity to food. And in almost all cases, with rare exception, guess what the hypersensitivity is to? It's not to vegetables, not to fruit, typically not to meat, clean meat that is. It's to processed foods, sometimes dairy, and sometimes gluten. She says we should start our treatment for kids with ADHD with diet research. But now we're giving them all drugs, and I think that that's a huge mistake. We've got good news. Food is the main cause of ADHD. 23 years in practice myself, I couldn't agree with this more. I have found, I'm going to talk about this later on, when we have kids eat better things, get rid of the processed food and soda, stop moving their bodies more. I show them specific coordination exercises. You can see this on my other material on YouTube and my website. And I get them chiropractic treatment, they get better. More on that later. So that's the first thing you need to do. You need to get your kids eating better things. The next thing you need to do is have kids exercise more. Here's one school that's doing that by having kids exercise during class time. The Naperville Central High School west of Chicago. What they did is they pulled treadmills and those large exercise balls right into the classroom. If kids feel as though they're losing their focus and attention, they go and exercise. It worked tremendously well. It cost very little for the schools to implement this. Exercise, good fitness-based exercise, makes our brain more ready to learn, says John Rately of the Harvard Medical School. I'll explain why later. After 30 minutes on the treadmill, they have a 10% better ability at problem solving. So they found this in the kids. More exercise, better problem solvers. Their reading scores in this one school went up twice as much, improved twice as much. But listen to this now. Listen to this. This is important. Math scores went up by a factor of 20 by bringing exercise into the classroom. Dr. Mercola talks about another research article which evaluated 14 studies indicating how important is it for kids to exercise and how is it going to improve their focus and attention and learning. How does it work? Exercise encourages your brain to work at optimum capacity by causing nerve cells to multiply, strengthen their interconnections, and protect them from damage. You have to limit your time that kids spend in front of the TV and video screens and smartphones and Xboxes and Game Boys and everything else and get them moving their bodies. It causes those nerve cells to multiply and get stronger connections. Less than 1/3 of kids ages 6 to 17 get at least 20 minutes of daily exercise in one form or another. If we get them exercising regularly, you reduce the risk of diabetes and prediabetes. You improve sleep. You have stronger bones. Sounds like some things that you want your children to have, right? Reduce restlessness or hyperactivity. Helps decrease symptoms of ADHD. We already addressed that. Improve immune system function, improve mood, weight loss, and increased energy levels. So now you've got these two things that you need to do for your kids. You have to get them eating better. You have to lead by example. You have to get them and pull them away from video screens of any sort and get them moving their bodies more so. These are the things you need to start doing right now with your kids. So those are the top two things that you need to do. Next up, we have to reduce video screen time. That's number 3. Now, a lot of you think that I'm going to dilute the effect of the smartphone and the computer and the Game Boy and so on and so forth by more exercise. It doesn't work. Title, Exercise Does Not Make Up for Kids' Screen Time. LifeScience.com, October of 2010. Time spent in front of the computer or television screen is associated with psychological problems in children, no matter how physically active the child is. Exercise is critically important. I went over that with you. But you still have to limit video screen time of any sort because it causes psychological problems in your children. And as you're watching this show and running through your own mind, your own child's performance, you know right now, if those kids are in front of video screens too long, their focus, their attention, their concentration, their schoolwork, everything slows down, right? You know this already. So I'm just telling you, you have to limit that time. Maybe you need to have them earn their time in front of the video screen by making sure that they exercise and eat good things and get their homework done. Then they can earn some limited video screen time. This, of course, is easier to do when your children are younger before they're hooked in front of video screens. Much more difficult with, let's say, adolescents and teenagers, but do the best you can. That's all you can do is do the best you can. If you just don't change anything and let them do their habits and let them drink lots of soda and sports drink and eat processed snacks of chips and crackers and candy and spend all day long in front of video screens, you're inhibiting their life, you're increasing their risk of chronic disease later on. Get to work. Toddler TV time can cause attention problems. Using the television to babysit 1 to 3-year-olds increases the possibility that the baby will have attention problems in school. That was an article from 2004. Out of the medical journal Pediatrics in 1999, the American Academy of Pediatrics, they recommended how much TV somebody can watch if they're 0 to 2 years old. How much TV can they watch? How much TV is safe? And the answer is 0. No TV is safe before age 2, they said back in 1999. Well, they also added to that and said, they followed that up with additional research And they said, how much computer time is safe? And the answer is, again, 0. Pediatrics, again, the medical journal in 2010. Children who spend greater than 2 hours per day watching TV or computer were at increased risk of high levels of psychological difficulties. And here's another title, Television Viewing Time and Reduce Life Expectancy. The more TV and computer you watch, the shorter your life. It sounds to me like it's pretty important to limit video screen time for all of those reasons. Next, regular sleep. I know you all know this is important for you as adults and for your children. I'm just going to say this, a couple of things. Do the best you can to get your children to bed, particularly adolescents and teenagers. Get them to bed as early as they can. I know they want to stay up late and I know they want to sleep late, but they have to get up for school the next day, right? Get them to bed as early as they can. And do not let their bedrooms be electronic libraries and havens where they can go and hole themselves up into the electronic cave of their bedroom. Get the electronics out of the bedroom as best you can. Next, number 5, smoking. Just yesterday, we heard from the U.S. Surgeon General, Regina Benjamin, about smoking in younger kids, and she gave us some disturbing news. She said 1 in 4 high schoolers are smoking. That's 25%. That is now more than adults. We were able to knock the smoking rate to close to 50% 50 years ago, down to 20%. Kids, it's starting to rise again. Why? Well, although the states won $246 billion in a settlement with the tobacco industry in 1998, much of the money earmarked specifically for anti-smoking campaigns has been shifted for other uses. Cities and towns took the money, states took the money, and then said, you know, economy's bad, we need to fund other stuff. They took money away from anti-smoking campaigns. The smoking rates are going up in your kids. 1 out of 4, 25%, 1 out of 4. You have to watch your kids and smoking. So watch who they're hanging around with carefully. Number 6, chiropractic. Sounds like it's something we should do, chiropractic. Why? Kids and earaches, brought to me by Dan Murphy, one of my colleagues, out of the Journal of the American Medical Association 2006, antibiotics for ear infections. 15 million antibiotic prescriptions written per year in the US for ear infections. Resistance to antibiotics is a major public health concern. Diarrhea is one of the most frequently reported side effects for antibiotics for ear infections. The authors showed that waiting to prescribe antibiotics for ear infections is a successful treatment strategy. Remember I talked about MRSA in Norway and stuff like that? You best believe that they are waiting until to see if it goes away on its own, because a lot of them are also viral infections. Waiting to use antibiotics for ear infections significantly reduces the use of antibiotics. However, most pediatricians in the United States are trained to routinely prescribe antibiotics for ear infections because many parents expect a prescription. The risk of antibiotics include GI symptoms, allergic reactions, accelerated resistance, and so on and so on. The routine use of waiting to prescribe antibiotics for ear infections will reduce both costs and adverse effects. Well, then you think, but my child has ear infections, what are we going to do? Oh, I have an answer for you. Children and chiropractic care. A couple of testimonials. 1.5-year-old Haley had 15 ear infections in the first 12 months. Tubes were recommended, but the parents said no. They were brought to me. Significant improvements after 2 chiropractic treatments. She was free of ear infections for 4 years. She had 1 more, and she has been fine since. She's now 18 years old and still a patient of mine. Darlene, not her real name, was 1-year-old when her parents brought her into me after being referred to me by her pediatrician. Very good. We're supposed to work together, right? Pediatricians, chiropractors, we're all here to help people, right? She had 20 ear infections in 10 months and virtually was continuously sick. They noticed improvements after 2 chiropractic adjustments. She was eating more, not as upset, happier and smiling and walking a lot more. After 5 chiropractic treatments, her mom noticed that she was more responsive, alive, bright, awake, and communicating more. After 6 chiropractic treatments, the pediatrician observed a significant reduction in the fluid in her ears and that she was totally a different child. 6 months later, her ears and sinuses were totally clear. chiropractic care. So keep that in mind, that's important. Asthma, eczema, and allergies in a 10-year-old brought to me. We did the no dairy thing and the chiropractic thing, and Mom wrote, what has happened to Katie's asthma is nothing short of a miracle. Not bad for a chiropractor, huh? Some of you have kids when they get older, they're carrying around heavy backpacks and they get back pain. How good is chiropractic for back pain? Really good. Spine magazine in 2003 took 3 groups of people, a drug group, an acupuncture group, a chiropractic group. They had chronic back pain. The drug group, Celebrex and Vioxx, oh, by the way, one of those drugs was taken off the market, I think, for serious effects, I think, yeah, killing people. The drug group and the acupuncture group, people had back pain for 4.5 to 6.5 years, and just randomly associated the chiropractic group was the worst group. They had chronic pain for over 8 years. 9 weeks of care. The drug group, 5% improved. Acupuncture, 9% improved. Chiropractic, 27% improved. Adverse effects, drug group 6%, chiropractic and acupuncture 0 side effects. Improvements in general health status, drug group 18%, acupuncture group 15%, chiropractic group 47% said, I'm not only feeling better, my whole life is better. Cool. 1 year follow-up on these groups. 1 year follow-up, treatment had stopped. Only application of chiropractic adjusting revealed broad-based long-term benefit, and chiropractic adjustment may be the only treatment modality of the assessed regimens that provides broad and significant long-term effects. Chiropractic and colic. Chiropractic group and a drug group compared for colic. The chiropractic group was at least twice as good as the drug group for infantile colic. Other studies, safety study for chiropractic on kids, 781 pediatric patients, 5,200 chiropractic treatments, no significant adverse effects. 114 infants with nursing issues, 78% of them with chiropractic care. After 2 to 5 chiropractic treatments, that's it, were able to exclusively breastfeed within 2 weeks. So nursing trouble, bring your kid to a chiropractor. Sounds good. More colic, 43 infants, 2 to 4 weeks after beginning treatment, almost all of them cried less and slept better. And then another research article on long-term sequelae of colic. One group had chiropractic, one group did not. They found the chiropractic group was twice as likely not to experience long-term problems from colic. Chiropractic care for your kids, that's important. Lastly, supplements. Supplements. What kind of supplements should you give your kid? I talk about this a lot. I have articles on my website. You need 5 supplements for your child. Fish oil, antioxidants including B vitamins, coenzyme Q10, alpha lipoic acid, vitamin D, probiotics, and a good quality multivitamin, not necessarily a big chain multivitamin. More on that later. Let's wrap this up. Autism and vitamin D. Lack of vitamin D has been associated with higher rates of autism, and vitamin D is one of the cheapest supplements we can give people. Vitamin D has shown to significantly decrease colorectal and breast cancer. That's important. Vitamins in Good Sense, Bernadine Healy, MD, says it the best. Where does this leave us? Don't smoke, more vegetables, take fish oil, and a multivitamin. And lastly, I have testimonials on my website for nonverbal learning disorder, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and ADHD. I'm Dr. Scott Fuller. Please join me again.